Hey folks, this is Adam Hill, and I am still a PhD candidate at U of T. I also continue to serve as an elected director on the University of Toronto Graduate Students' Union's Board of Directors, although I can no longer attend their meetings. More on that later. Today marks the beginning of a campaign, the first substantial action of the newly minted UTGSU resistance. I am currently, unfortunately, one of the few public faces of the resistance, but I can assure you, my name is Legion, for we are many. And we are attempting to take legal action. Today's agenda includes the following: a discussion of the current legal context, the resistance's preferred approach, and an overview of how you can assist the resistance. First, the legal context. The University of Toronto Graduate Students' Union has violated the rights of its members consistently for almost half a decade. Most recently, from my angle, the UTGSU excluded 2 of my annual general meeting motions from the 2021 AGM without justification. These motions attempted to create a conversation space regarding our botched corporate continuance application, as well as to discuss and to potentially investigate how this breach of the union's democratic processes came about in the first place. According to the Internal Commissioner's Public Executive Report for January, the Executive Committee paid our legal counsel for advice regarding whether to include my motions in the AGM agenda and mailouts. Upon that legal counsel, the Executive excluded those motions without communicating to me in writing this justification for their exclusion, despite my multiple requests to do so. I specifically requested a written ruling for the exclusion of these motions, since the chair of the UTGSU's Board of Appeal noted that I could not appeal the exclusion of these motions without a ruling. Shortly after my request, the Internal Commissioner issued a non-contact request from their official account, which I have genuinely and exhaustively respected to date. And then, through that same official account, the Internal Commissioner threatened to contact campus police if I breached said non-contact request. So much for our Cops Off Campus campaign. Oh, this is just the tip of that colloquial iceberg. More recently, I submitted a motion requesting that the Board of Directors task the Executive Committee with seeking U of T Governing Council approval for the new bylaws that by lawfully require U of T Governing Council approval. That motion was also excluded from both mailouts for the February 2022 Board of Directors meeting, without justification. And, insult to injury, at that February 2022 Board of Directors meeting, I was banned from the remainder of that meeting, and from all subsequent Board of Directors meetings, for violating the equity statement. At least, that's how it was recorded by one of my allies. Apparently, the Board of Directors realized that this ruling and its upholding might seem, optically authoritarian, and reduced my ban from the Board of Directors to the end of April 2022. But given that they were unwilling to reference my previous video, or to provide really any evidence whatsoever of an actual breach of our equity statement, this move sets an interesting precedent. Notably, the Board of Appeal chair resigned almost immediately after that meeting, and the vice chair has indicated that they have no intention of hearing appeals. But it gets better. This is just the beginning, folks. The breaches of my rights as a member and as a democratically elected director pale in comparison to the UTGSU's impending liability after May 1st, 2022. You see, the new bylaws that enable right of exit and right of termination discussed in my last video remain on the books as of the publication of this video, or at least they remain the will of the membership as communicated at our 2021 annual general meeting. Our overlords had the insight to try to scrub these bylaws of these clauses given pressure from the university administration. However, in an attempt to right the wrongs of the undemocratic misrepresentation of the will of our membership, on March 29th, 2022, the Board of Directors, about 60 at the time or so I was told, voted near unanimously to repeal these clauses. Those in attendance had admirable intentions. But once again, they increased our liability under the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act. The new Board of Directors, a group of approximately 30 elected representatives, empowered by those bylaws to alter those bylaws, does not exist until May 1st, 2022. Once again, this regime has disregarded its members' interest and its existence as a democracy, Once again, this regime has increased our collective liability by attempting to overrule a special resolution of the members with a resolution of the board of directors from a dissolving corporation, transpiring in part because they cut me out of communications, in addition to banning me from the board of directors. An excommunication with no legal basis. You know, they were already ignoring my emails, but somehow this is worse. If my recording and editing of YouTube videos doesn't make it clear, I would have called these continued departures out if I had known about them. Moreover, the CNCA has provision for resignation of membership under Article 156A if our own bylaws or articles do not. So if these bylaws have not been replaced, then we default to the CNCA, the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, which also has provision to resign. Though the university and the UTGSU might not be equipped or ready for people to leave or to have their memberships terminated, these by lawful provisions shall shortly become rights of every graduate student registered at U of T. Furthermore, it's likely that even if the University of Toronto were equipped to manage these changes in UTGSU membership, allocations of fees, and terminations of health and dental plans, that the UTGSU Board of Directors might not let members leave, even upon their communicating their resignations. In addition to other documented rights violations, it is this right to leave the UTGSU that has become the rallying cry of the UTGSU resistance. In addition to students' rights to freedoms of speech and of association, which have been consistently eroded by the regime dominating student politics at the University of Toronto, we, the members of the resistance, respect students' right to leave the UTGSU after May 1st, 2022, under the UTGSU's new bylaws, approved by its actual membership. As alluded to in my previous video, I've been in constant communication with various stakeholders attempting to clarify the best course of action or remedy in response to these abuses. My consultations with representatives from Corporations Canada concluded with the identification of 3 different legal approaches for remedy. We reviewed these approaches with various pro bono Ontario legal counsels. Ultimately, the UTGSU resistance has been advised to seek the legal remedy of a class action oppression action under Section 253 of the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act to redress the multitude of UTGSU members' unfair discrimination and rights violations. A legal firm in Toronto specializing in class action lawsuits has agreed to facilitate this case should we secure the generously low retainer of $10,000. I've been quoted $40,000 to $70,000, so that's pretty cheap. We are seeking your financial support to fund this retainer in order to ensure that students' rights in the UTGSU are respected. We're poor grad students too, so we're not expecting U of T grad students themselves to foot this bill, but we encourage you to spread the word to those who can support us financially. The UTGSU Resistance secured a separate bank account for this particular initiative. We will publish invoices on a monthly basis that include all withdrawals to finance this retainer and any other associated costs, such as running advertisements related to this campaign, after the UTGSU Resistance makes an initial withdrawal from the account. The law firm that we intend to work with cannot be identified until we secure the retainer. However, the lawyer managing the class action team is highly experienced, decorated, and respected in the downtown Toronto legal community. They have managed multiple class action teams in the past and promise a robust legal counsel. We anticipate that this case will evolve, well, my case, will evolve into a much larger class action as UTGSU members seek resignation from the UTGSU, but have their resignations ignored or rejected. If you would like to join the class action, or to support our movement in other capacities, please reach out to us at utgsuresistance@gmail.com. We're also happy to connect with folks if you have any questions. For more information regarding how to support our legal action financially, please review the links to the GoFundMe in the video description. In closing, after my removal at the February meeting, the UTGSU's Governance Commissioner, Lwanga Musisi, issued a statement on behalf of the UTGSU executive and staff before the UTGSU Board of Directors moved in camera. Musisi was quoted by the Varsity as stating, "The UTGSU has progressively become an unsafe working environment due to the frequent harassment of the union staff and certain executive committee members." You know what makes me feel unsafe at U of T? The multiple and continued violations of our rights as citizens and residents of Canada. I know this might come as a surprise to members of the regime, But the law of the land precedes the laws of U of T, which precede those that we came up with in the UTGSU, autonomously or otherwise. Moreover, the U of T Office of the Vice Provost Students seems to agree with me on that particular bullet point. How dare you threaten to crush the Complaint Resolution Council for Student Societies when they're the only U of T administrative body willing to stand up for the Canadian charter right of Israeli students to freedom from nationalistic discrimination? Folks, we either fight this authoritarian nonsense, practice apathetic complicity, or worse. That's not a false trichotomy. It's the context that made these authoritarian abuses of graduate students' rights possible in the first place. I wrote a piece recently about courage. One of my conclusions was that authoritarianism prevails where courage fails. This is our opportunity as a community to practice courage in the face of adversity. We have a once-in-a-lifetime chance to communicate emphatically that we will not take these abuses of our charter rights lying down. We are U of T graduate students. We can do better. We have done better. So let's do better together. And keep fighting the good fight.